These are gonna be massive. Probably my favorite thing is waiting to see what color they're going to be. Either way, they'll look great on my kitchen counter. Hey guys, it's Anna from Bright Lane Gardens. Today I wanted to walk through a super simple step that I take with my tomato plants in the middle of the summer every summer to increase my fruit production as well as improve the overall health of my tomato plants. This is a very simple step and it won't take long at all, so this will be a really quick tutorial. Watch through till the end so you can make sure that you gather all the tips and tricks to increase your tomato production this year. All you're going to need for today's tutorial is a clean, sharp pair of pruners. These are my Husky bypass pruners, but any clean and sharp pruners will work, as well as your tomato plants, of course. Behind me, you'll see I have two massive tomato plants. These plants are each probably 4 to 5 feet tall. I started them from seed back in the spring and then did transfer them out to my raised beds early in the summer. These are rainbow heirloom tomatoes, and I'll actually post a link to the seeds that I use for these in the description below because I have consistently good, healthy plants with great yields from these seeds. So today we're going to use a trick called bottom pruning to help improve the overall health of our plant and of course increase our fruit yield with our tomato plants. Bottom pruning is a practice that basically trims off some of the bottommost foliage that does not have fruit on it to help drive more of that energy up to the fruit producing parts of the plant. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, bottom pruning is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. We're going to start pruning some of the branches from the bottom up. Really, we're looking for non-fruit producing branches that are low to the ground and below the first set of branches that have actual tomato production on them. Now, the goal of this is to basically eliminate additional foliage that's not necessary for fruit production. And in doing so, it's going to help drive more of that energy up into the branches that are producing fruit. Additionally, pruning from the bottom up will help eliminate pests and diseases that tend to congregate around the base of the plant, as well as opening the bottom of the plant up to more airflow, which of course prevents mildew and mold. First step that we need to do is identify the lowest branches that do not produce any fruit for us. So let's head on over to the tomato plant and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm down here at the base of my first tomato plant here, and as you can see, it's kind of a mess. We can see this main stem straight back here. Here's my main stem here. And you can see I do have a couple other primary stems that are coming off from this main stem. So we want to be really cautious. We're certainly not cutting any stems today. We only want to cut branches. This right here is a great example of a branch that we are going to eliminate today. This branch doesn't have any flowers on it. There are no tomatoes. There's no fruit production happening on this branch. It's laying down, actively touching the ground, which just provides a super highway for pests like ants and other crawling insects to crawl right up the base of that tomato there and get to the rest of my plant. So this guy's definitely got to go. Another example on this next plant here, you can see that there's a lot of drooping branches here that really don't have any fruit on them. No flowers, no small tomatoes. You can even see that some of them are starting to die off due to lack of sun exposure. And I also have a lot of evidence of insect activity on some of these lower branches. So I definitely want to eliminate all of these lower branches here, and it will really open up the base of my plant. I'm going to try to capture this the best that I can. It's a weird angle here with my raised bed setup, but I want to make sure that you guys can see how I'm pruning these. So we're going to start with that very first branch that I was referring to on this first plant here. And I'm going to have to get a little creative with how I access it. You want to make sure you're not breaking any branches that you don't want off. And I'm just going to trim it right at the very base. Now, as always, your usual pruning rules apply. So try to cut that on a 45-degree angle if you can, just so that the nub that's left behind doesn't collect any water or residue. And we're just going to keep trimming off some of these lower branches. Again, we want to make very sure that these are not fruit producing branches. We also want to make sure that they're not a supporting branch or a supporting stem for other producing branches. So just be cautious that you're not over pruning. Definitely any very small ones down at the bottom you want to go ahead and remove. It doesn't need any of this lower foliage. This lower foliage really can't even get great access to the sun once the plant reaches a certain size, so just not necessary at all. All right, so I finished my bottom pruning on these two plants, and as you can see, it's really nicely opened up the bottom of these plants. So significantly more airflow can now make it to the roots of these plants as well as these lower stems. This is going to significantly reduce my risk of mildew, mold, and other diseases, especially as the weather starts to get a little rainier and a little more wet upon the end of summer, early fall here in northern Michigan. I ended up pruning off quite a bit. This is most of the foliage that I took off from the two plants. I would say I took off at least 5 to 6 branches off of each plant. None of them had any fruit on them, no evidence of flowers or future fruit. So these were all great branches to eliminate. And that's really going to help drive the energy from these roots up into the parts of this plant that actually are producing fruit for me. I have a handful of really large tomatoes already starting, and I'm eager to see how fast they grow and mature now that I've given the plant more energy to deliver to these fruit producing branches. You can definitely see that I've already had a lot of insect activity on these lower branches that I took off. So the other added benefit of removing those lower branches is they were really creating these super highways that would touch the ground, and it just made it so easy for crawling insects to make their way up to the fruiting part of my plant. So I've eliminated those access points. Of course, pests are always going to be an issue, but anytime you can reduce the number of pests or reduce their access points, you're going to see a better yield and an overall healthier plant either way. That's really all there is to it when it comes to bottom pruning. This is a technique that you can use on any tomato plant. I also commonly will use it on my pepper plants as well, which do grow in a very similar manner to tomatoes. Anytime you're pruning a plant, especially when it's in the middle of summer, make sure you're giving that plant adequate water when you're done. So I'm going to turn on the irrigation for an extra time today just to make sure that these guys get plenty of moisture so they can spring right back after having part of their foliage removed. A good general rule of thumb, if you're wondering how much to take off from your plant, about 1/4 of the plant is good. You really don't want to go too much more than that. You'll run the risk of putting the plant into shock, but you don't want to under prune it either, because the whole goal of this is to help the plant have more energy to deliver to those fruit producing branches. If you have any questions on my methods for growing tomatoes or anything to do with gardening in general, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. It is officially the middle to the end of summer here in northern Michigan, and my garden is in full bloom here at Bright Lane Gardens. So I have so many more gardening videos ahead, especially as we move into harvest season. If you enjoy watching content like this, then I encourage you to subscribe to our channel and set up your alert button so that you know when the next video drops. I appreciate you spending time here on our channel today. It sure does help out small businesses like ours so much. As always, thanks for tuning in with us today, and I sure hope to catch you next time. Bye-bye.